In January of this year, Machine Games Studio has announced that they will be working on an Indiana Jones game. A lot of people took this as a sign that Wolfenstein has been put on a back burner, which I believe to be far from the truth. So today, we will investigate the existence of Wolfenstein 3, why I think it will come before the Indiana Jones, and why the announcement might be just around the corner. First of all, let's take a look at the time gap between the games. Wolfenstein: The New Order was released in May of 2014 and was positively received. It was followed 1 year later by a standalone expansion, The Old Blood. After that, the next mainline game, Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus, came in October of 2017, with its 3 DLC packs subsequently releasing in December of 2017, January of 2018 and March of 2018. The next spin-off title, Youngblood, launched nearly a year and a half later, in July of 2019. Looking at the space between the games, we have 3.5 years from the release of The New Order to the release of The New Colossus, and at least 4 years from that moment to speculated Wolfenstein 3. Seeing as 3 to 4 years is quite an average development time in the case of modern AAA games, it would make sense for the next big title to be on the horizon very soon. It is also worth noting that Wolfenstein Youngblood has been co-developed with Arcane Studios, and there is some evidence pointing towards Machine Games having 2 development teams working on separate projects. It is quite likely that while one half of the team co-worked with Arcane on Youngblood, the other half had already entered pre-production for the next big game in the franchise. More evidence of that being the case can be found if one takes a closer look at the LinkedIn profiles of various Machine Games developers. While many have been working on Youngblood till late 2019, we can find quite a few people who state that they have been working on an unannounced project as far back as October of 2018. This project is certainly not Youngblood, as it was already unveiled at the time, and it couldn't have been Indiana Jones, since that partnership did not form until 2020, thus implying that Machine Games is indeed in the middle of production of yet another game. Now, at this point, it has been nearly 2 full years since the latest release, with no official announcements regarding the franchise ever since. We do know, however, that Wolfenstein Youngblood is not the last game in the series. Bethesda's Senior Vice President of PR and Marketing, Pete Hines, confirmed back in September of 2018 that Wolfenstein 3 is absolutely being made. Machine Games creative director Jens Mathies also stated that the studio always envisioned the franchise as a trilogy, and that Youngblood is considered a spin-off title not meant to be Wolfenstein 3. Speaking of Jens Mathies, as creative director he worked on most of the titles made by Machine Games. However, when one takes a closer look at the credits of Wolfenstein Youngblood, his name is nowhere to be found. He hasn't left the studio and still holds the position of co-founder and creative director at Machine Games, so clearly he's been busy working on something ever since The New Colossus concluded its development. Again, with Indiana Jones being still a relatively fresh partnership between LucasArts and Bethesda, it can only mean that the studio has been working on something that hasn't been publicly announced yet. I want to also briefly talk about Indiana Jones, since some people thought that Machine Games has been working on it for a while. Once again, taking some evidence from LinkedIn, we can see that a lot of people at the studio began working on this project only in the first quarter of 2021. I would also like to point out the very brief and skimpy nature of the announcement that happened in January of this year. Most of the time when developers announce their next big title, they tend to do it with a bit of a bang, so to speak. But in the case of Indiana Jones, we basically got a licensing announcement, with no real information about the game whatsoever. We don't know the title of the game, we do not know when it's coming, we don't even know what kind of genre it will be. In that aspect, it is quite similar to the reveal made by IO Interactive just a few weeks prior, when Project 007 was announced with basically no information aside from the fact that such a game is set to be made at some point in the future. Because of all of this, I think we can safely assume that Indiana Jones game has barely entered production just this year, and it will be probably a long while before we hear any more news about it. The announcement was likely made to gauge the interest of the fans and see how much buzz it would create. As to when we can expect Wolfenstein 3 to be officially revealed and released, my best guess would be the joint Xbox and Bethesda E3 conference, which is set to happen on June 13th. Some of the leaks from the past couple of weeks have suggested that we should expect from 3 to 5 new AAA announcements there, with Wolfenstein 3 being a popular prediction. Of course, such things should be taken with a grain of salt, so it's not necessarily guaranteed to happen. Another choice could be QuakeCon 2021, which is planned to be live through August 19th to 21st, and Gamescom 2021 happening just a few days later. If Wolfenstein 3 is indeed going to make an appearance there, a very late 2021 release is not entirely out of question. However, considering the rather packed autumn of 2021 in terms of AAA releases, as well as the fact that in most cases a spring or summer release was more common for the series, I think we could also see it launch in the first half of 2022. Only time will tell, however, if any of this will turn out to be true. Again, most of this video was an educated speculation, but I think that the final game in the trilogy of Machine Games' Wolfenstein series is on the way, and we will hear about it in a matter of weeks, if not days. Regardless of that, I hope that you'll have a good day, thank you for watching and I'll see you around. Take care.